What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football schedule preview and projected record series. Up next are the LSU Tigers before we preview their schedule for 2024 and give them an early projected record based on how tough that schedule is. Let's take a look back at what LSU did in 2023. Here are my predictions and projections last year for the LSU Tigers. You see my projection for them was 10-2, and then my prediction for them was also 10-2. But LSU was one game off of, doing that. The same thing with my projections and predictions last year. This team went 9-3 last year in 2023. Again, this is based off of the regular season, but if you want to count that bowl game victory against Wisconsin at the end of the year, LSU ended up finishing 10-3 overall in 2023. So back-to-back 10-win seasons here for the first 2 years under Brian Kelly at LSU here in 2023. Here was that schedule last year for the LSU Tigers. Of course, in the non-conference, they played Florida State, of course, on that Sunday night game on September the 3rd in Orlando. They did lose that game. The game was pretty close in the first half. Second half, though, it was really all the Seminoles in that second half, and that really was a tough loss to begin the year last year for LSU. And then you look at their two losses that came in the SEC. They lost on the road at Ole Miss. That was a shootout there. They lost that game by 6 points back on September the 30th. And then they lost, of course, to rival Alabama here on November 4th. They lost that game by a couple touchdowns. So not the season that LSU wanted last year in 2023. Again, this team was 9-3 last year in 2023. We'll see if they have a really good chance to be better in 2024. Let's now look ahead to 2024 for LSU. Here's the schedule for them heading into 2024. Before we go game by game and preview each and every single individual game here on this schedule, let's take a look at who LSU will play in the non-conference. Of course, no divisions in the SEC this year. So this is their non-conference schedule. They will play USC, of course, in the non-conference. USC now a Big Ten opponent this year instead of being a Pac-12 team. They will play USC in a neutral site game this year in Las Vegas. Very excited for this non-conference matchup here between these two teams. And I believe this game will now be on a Sunday night on September the 1st. So they will play USC there in the non-conference. Then they'll play Nichols University here. And then they play UCLA here as well. Another Big Ten team that's going to be a newcomer this year in the Big Ten Conference. So they do play two Power 5 teams in this non-conference schedule, and then you got South Alabama here as well. So the non-conference schedule is a little bit tough for LSU because you got USC and UCLA, two Power 5 teams. USC might be a little bit tougher than UCLA, though. USC, that game is a neutral site game, just like I mentioned, and then that UCLA game will be a home game here for LSU. So that's the non-conference schedule for LSU in 2024. Let's now get into the schedule here, and let's go back to the schedule, I should say, and go game by game now. So LSU will start things off here with USC on September 1st. Again, this game will be on Labor Day weekend on September the 1st, the day before Labor Day, and this game will be at Las Vegas, of course. Big-time non-conference game coming up here to start the season in 2024. Then it's Nichols University here on September 7th after that USC game, and then after that they play SEC play. They open up SEC play on the road at South Carolina. Going to be a very tough place to play here, especially to open up SEC play on September 14th. I think this could definitely be a trap game here for LSU to start out the year in SEC play. And then they play that non-conference game at home against UCLA here on September 21st. And then after that, it's South Alabama here on September 28th. So you look at these 5 games, LSU will play 5 games in the month of September. Then they get a bye week in that first weekend of the month of October. They will play Ole Miss, of course, on October 12th at home. This is a revenge game here from last year for LSU. Again, this was a shootout last year. I kind of expect the same thing, this year for LSU and Ole Miss this season. You look at Arkansas, the next game here on October 19th. That game will be on the road this year. And then you got Texas A&M also on the road on October 26th. So LSU has back-to-back road games here in the month of October against Arkansas and Texas A&M. A tough back-to-back road games here. Texas A&M will be a very tough place to play, even though Texas A&M has a new head coach this year. So LSU would now get a bye week after that game. They'll get their second bye week, and they always get a bye week before playing their big game here against Alabama. And this time they get Alabama at home this year. That definitely favors them a little bit. Alabama, of course, still going to have talent, though. I think this will still be a very competitive game, even though Nick Saban retired, of course, and they're going to really miss him in this rivalry. But this game will be on November 9th, like it always is in the month of November. And then they play Florida here on the road on November 16th. Then it's Vanderbilt at home on November 23rd, and then they close things out here with Oklahoma on November 30th. So instead of playing Texas A&M in rivalry week, they switched it up, and now they're playing Oklahoma in rivalry week here on November 30th in the 2024 season. Of course, Oklahoma, one of those newcomers this year in the SEC this season, so that is the schedule for LSU in 2024. And again, when I look at the schedule, the non-conference schedule, again, is very tough. You got USC and UCLA both on the schedule. Good news is that you get the Bruins at home. USC is a neutral site game in Las Vegas. And they do got some tough road games with South Carolina on the road. That's definitely a trap game there. Arkansas on the road, Texas A&M on the road. And you also got Florida on the road as well. So, got some very tough road games on this schedule if you're an LSU fan. I think LSU has a really good opportunity to have another really good season in 2024. Let's now get to the projection here for LSU. Again, this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is for LSU. This is the scale that I've been using here for my projections. If it's a 1% game in the red, these are games where LSU has no chance of competing in. 20% games in the orange, games where LSU will be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. 40% games in the yellow, games that, LSU will be a heavy underdog in by about a touchdown. I don't think realistically you're going to see any of those red, orange, and yellow games here on this schedule, just because LSU will be favored in almost every single one of their games. 50-50 games, though, these will stay in the white, games that can go either way. 60% games in the purple, games where LSU will be favored by at least a touchdown. In the purple, 80% games in the blue, games where LSU will be favored by a couple touchdowns. And then the 99% games, these are the easy wins here for LSU in the 99% range, and we count those as easy wins automatically. And that's the percentage that we're going to start here with LSU, the easy wins here for the Tigers. So let's start with the 99% games in the green. And I think you got three of them on this schedule. You got Nichols University here on September 7th, and South Alabama here, your two cupcake games out of the non-conference. And then out of the SEC, you got Vanderbilt here on November 23rd. I don't really expect Vanderbilt to be pretty good this year. I don't know what to expect from the Condors either. So I got three games here that LSU will be favored by at least over 95%. I think that Vanderbilt game could probably be at 90% since it is an SEC opponent, but with it being a home game, I could realistically see it be in this game like over 95%. So all three of these games, LSU will be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. Let's now go to the next percentage here, the 80% in the blue. Realistically, when I look at this schedule, I don't really see any blue games here on this schedule for LSU. So now let's go to the next percentage, and that's the purple games here in the 60% range. And that's almost the majority of their schedule, but I got 5 of them on this schedule. South Carolina, UCLA, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Florida. South Carolina, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Florida are all road games. Based off of where these teams were from last year, I think LSU is definitely better than all 4 of these teams. South Carolina will definitely be a trap game on the road there. Arkansas is kind of another trap game. That's a rivalry. You never know what can happen. The game was pretty close last year. Based off of where Arkansas was, though, last year, they didn't have a really good season, and LSU was definitely more better than them. Same thing with Texas A&M. I don't know what to expect from them, but, they're at least going to be a slight favorite here against Texas A&M on the road here, especially with a first-year head coach for the Aggies. And then Florida, I don't know what to expect from Florida either. I know they've been recruiting pretty well this year, but I don't really see this team as of right now being really good. Florida on the road is a very tough place to play, but I think LSU is the more talented team. And again, these games that you're seeing in the purple, LSU is the more talented team compared to all 5 of these teams. Texas A&M might be even with LSU. I'm going to pick with it, and LSU is like the better talented team. And then UCLA, that non-conference game, it is a home game, but I'm going to put it in the purple just because it's a non-conference game and it's also a Power 5 team. So I think LSU will be favored in all 5 of these games in the purple by at least a touchdown. And again, I don't really see LSU being a realistic underdog in like some of these games either. And the rest of the games here in the 50-50 category, the rest of the 4 games that you're seeing on this schedule, USC at Las Vegas, Ole Miss at home, Alabama at home, and Oklahoma at home. I think these are all your 50-50 games in my opinion. USC in Las Vegas is a neutral site game. It's always tough to pick those neutral site games. Basically USC, I know they were not very good last year, but realistically, I think both of these offenses are pretty even. I think both defenses might struggle a little bit this year, depending on how it goes. And then Ole Miss, that definitely is a game that can go either way. I know LSU is at home, but this game was a shootout last year. Alabama, obviously, the big rival here. It's definitely a game that can go either way. And then Oklahoma here. I don't know really what to expect, like I've been saying with Oklahoma here, that, I've been talking about them. I don't really know what to expect from this team in their first year in the SEC. I think Oklahoma, like I said, is going to have a lot of 50-50 games this year coming up. I think LSU, they can really, I think these are all pretty much 50-50 games in my opinion for the Tigers. Again, that USC game is a neutral site game. Those are very tough ones to pick when you pick a favorite in those neutral site games as well. So those are my 50-50 games, those 4 games. I could see them realistically winning 2 out of the 4 games here that you're seeing in the 50-50 games. I think you split those 50-50 games as well. And again, let's say they beat USC and Ole Miss, and then they lose to Alabama and Oklahoma. That would give you probably a projection of 10-2. But let's say they lose to USC and Ole Miss, and then they beat Alabama and Oklahoma. That would still come out to be 10-2. Again, we're going to split those 50-50 games here, 2 out of the 4 games. Let's not get a projected record here for this LSU team. And again, it's not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is. So we count the green games as wins there, and then you split those purple games, you average those out at 60%, and then you average out the 50-50 games and also split those 2 games, 2 out of the 4 50-50 games here in the white. You get an overall projected record for this LSU team at 10-2 for 2024. So again, when you split those 50-50 games, the overall projection would come out to be 10-2 for the Tigers here. And again, I do see them winning at least 2 out of the 4 games, but what if they win 3 of them? Let's say they win their 3 home games and then lose to USC. LSU might be able to finish 11-1. It would really not shock me if LSU did go undefeated. I think this schedule really sets up nicely for them. Now, those road games, South Carolina on the road is a trap game. Arkansas is definitely a trap game. Texas A&M might be the road game they can possibly lose to. And then Florida, that's also another trap game. And then you got Alabama here, which realistically could be a loss at home. But let's say they beat all 3 of these teams at home and then they lose to USC. That would give you a projection of 11-1. But again, what if they win all 4 of these games? LSU could finish out 12-0, and that wouldn't really shock me if LSU did go 12-0 in 2024. I think LSU is going to be a pretty good team, pretty average type team. I don't really see them going all the way to the SEC championship, but Brian Kelly, I think, has enough talent to where he can really get this LSU team to a realistically a good chance to the SEC title game. So that is my official projection here for the LSU Tigers. Let me guys know what you think about LSU. What do you think their projection is for 2024? And give me your best case scenario and worst case scenario for this LSU team in 2024 as well. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.